If every human on Earth vanished tomorrow, the first thing the planet would experience is an overwhelming quiet. The roar of highway traffic, the hum of factory machinery, and the relentless buzz of digital chatter would stop instantly. Inside millions of homes, the ghosts of our routines would play out on a loop. Coffee would sit cooling on kitchen counters, phones would ring endlessly on office desks, and televisions would continue broadcasting the morning news to empty living rooms. Without us to observe them, the deeply personal artifacts we leave behind lose their weight. A handwritten diary, a framed family photograph, or a carefully wrapped birthday gift are suddenly stripped of their meaning because the minds that held those memories no longer exist. We spent centuries building empires and fighting over borders, acting as though our presence was a permanent fixture.
Yet, in a single afternoon, the Earth would simply keep spinning, barely noticing our departure. Beneath our major cities, an invisible battle against water is fought 24 hours a day. Massive subterranean pumping systems constantly push back groundwater to keep tunnels and basements dry. But these pumps require continuous electrical power and human maintenance. Without engineers to monitor the grid, those pumps would fail almost immediately. Within 36 hours, the entire New York City subway system would flood with millions of gallons of groundwater, turning transit corridors into impassable subterranean canals. Above ground, the initial aftermath is brutal for species we brought into our homes and exhibits. Millions of domestic pets locked inside apartments, along with captive animals trapped in zoo enclosures, would face starvation within a week. Organisms that evolved strictly to survive on us would fare even worse. The human head louse, a highly specialized parasite that depends entirely on the warmth and blood of a human scalp, would go completely extinct across the globe in a matter of days. This post-human era begins as a violent purge, immediately stripping away all biological life and mechanical infrastructure that spent centuries leaning on human intervention. Our global network of automated industries, chemical plants, and power grids forms a massive system known as the technosphere. We built this system under the assumption that we would always be here to manage its physical and chemical pressures. When the main electrical grid shuts down, the world's roughly 450 operational nuclear reactors will automatically trigger their failsafes. Emergency diesel generators will kick in to pump cooling water over the radioactive fuel rods, but those generators will burn through their on-site fuel reserves in exactly 7 to 14 days. Once those engines stop, the coolant boils off. We would see hundreds of nuclear cores melt down simultaneously. At the same time, unmonitored petrochemical refineries would automatically vent high-pressure, flammable gases into the atmosphere, eventually catching a spark and igniting fires that burn for weeks. The massive machines we built to master the elements actually required thousands of hours of daily, intensive human labor just to prevent catastrophic thermodynamic decay. This diagram illustrates how modern skyscrapers will fall. Without maintenance, carbon dioxide and moisture lower the concrete's alkaline pH, allowing water to reach internal steel rebar. As the steel rusts, it expands 6 times its volume, generating massive tension that shatters the surrounding concrete. Combined with seasonal freeze and thaw cycles, the core structures of our cities will tear themselves apart from the inside out. Over a few centuries, this internal rotting causes massive suspension bridges to flake apart and snap. Intricate gravity-bound monuments like St. Basil's Cathedral in Moscow will suffer under extreme winter weather cycles until their supporting arches buckle and fold inward. But as our architecture disintegrates, biology rapidly reclaims restraints. The domestic pigs that manage to escape their enclosures will interbreed and evolve back into leaner, aggressive wild boars within a few generations. Packs of wolves and other apex predators will push downward from the wilderness to hunt in the overgrown streets of former urban centers. We already have empirical models for this recovery in places we call accidental sanctuaries. In the Chernobyl exclusion zone, despite high levels of localized radiation, populations of wild Przewalski's horses and Eurasian lynx have surged to densities far higher than when the area was actively farmed. It reveals a sharp ecological irony. Wildlife is so resilient that it recovers most effectively in the exact locations where humans caused massive industrial disasters and were forced to evacuate.
Fast forward 10,000 years, and the climate-controlled vaults protecting our history will have long since failed. The magnetic data on our hard drives will degrade, and thousands of miles of paper archives will be consumed by mold and insects. Every written account of our wars, every mathematical proof, and every physical painting will turn to unrecognizable dust. Our entire cultural memory will be erased from the Earth's surface. What will endure, however, is our trash. Millions of tons of synthetic macroplastics, enhanced with chemical stabilizers, are currently sinking down to the cold, anaerobic depths of the ocean floor. Looking at this ocean depth chart, you can see why this matters. The primary mechanism that breaks down plastic is photooxidation, triggered by solar UV radiation. By sinking below the reach of the sun's rays, these polymers enter an environment that preserves them almost perfectly. Our brightest novels and architectural wonders will vanish completely, while the synthetic packaging from our daily conveniences sits undisturbed in the dark for millennia. If an alien geologist were to visit Earth 10 million years from now, they wouldn't find crumbling cities or rusted cars. They would find the stratigraphic record, a single highly compressed layer of rock running globally beneath the topsoil. Within that thin geological stripe, they would detect bizarre chemical signatures, heavy metals like lead and cadmium squeezed into dense veins, degraded microscopic carbonaceous plastics, and a persistent global spike in isotopic radiation from the mid-20th century. The only intact monuments of our existence will be the ones that left the planet entirely. The Voyager spacecraft, coasting through the near vacuum of interstellar space, will remain physically intact for billions of years, surviving long after the sun expands and consumes the Earth. This planetary scale proves that the Earth possesses a limitless capacity to overwrite its own history, eventually treating our period of dominance as a brief, erasable episode. If the final evidence of our species is a microscopic smudge of isotopes in a rock, the significance of humanity cannot be found in the physical structures we leave behind. Instead, our value lies in the temporary, unfossilized moments we share, in learning how to care for each other while we are still here to witness the story.